Cards Open 10. Ollie, can you believe this is the 10th edition of Cards Open?
No, not at all. I think it's pretty crazy. Cards Open has gone through a few different formats, kind of since we created it. We've done singleton tournaments and we've done this and that. I think we even did like a Cards Open week where we did like 30 tournaments or something. But now we're on the 10th tournament. We're starting to see legacies get built within the Cards Open space, and I'm extremely excited for it.
Absolutely. Let's jump in. Let's see who's competing. I mean, Ollie, you mentioned, the return of Darkness, people building legacy. I remember, Darkness, like you mentioned, winning events back to back early on in the Cards Open infancy stages. I remember Darkness being kind of the name to beat. People got into tournaments knowing that, hey, if I go head to head with him, it's going to be a challenge. Obviously, Darkness has done a lot more recently between casting, content creation, more streaming, and all of that. So, still a very, very popular piece in the community. But going head to head with Vinny on the left side of the bracket, that is no easy matchup.
No, not at all. And I mean, Vinny is a player that we've also seen kind of pay his dues, so to speak, within the Cards Open scene. I believe Vinny has improved a lot through his tournament participation and preparation. We've seen him now in OCCs as well, and I think Darkness is going to definitely have a fight on his hands here. When it comes to Vinny, he's not going to give up without a fight. These players are also very familiar with each other, so I'm expecting an extremely good series here. Of course, I mean, you don't have to go further to validate their skill than the fact that they are here in the top four, with over 250 people try to get here, but now we're only down to 4. So these are the best of the best, and Darkness versus Vinny, it's going to be shaping up for one hell of a best out of 5. And that's what I love about the opens as well, is that we get these best out of 5s. This is going to be an extremely deep display of skill by both players to clutch that victory. And then you move on to the other side of the bracket. You got Dion versus No 5. That's like the clash of the titans from the Chinese community. Dion, nobody had heard of him before January 2022, but all of a sudden he's everywhere. He's been in both OCCs, second place on the ladder. Now he's in the Cards Open top 4. This player is an absolutely, unstoppable beast with momentum that is unparalleled in cards right now. But he's taking on No 5. No 5, who kind of took the torch from Hui Hui and became the most consistent and the most successful Chinese player within the competitive scene. So this is like old school meeting new school there on the right hand side of the bracket. I think this is an extremely control-heavy matchup here, or control-heavy deck lineup here for Darkness. We know that Darkness plays exceptionally well when it comes to control. You just saw that even during the World Championship, which was probably the most control-heavy tournament that we've seen. He really shined there. Bringing that Soviet Italy deck, taking a page out of Jay King's book, I think this deck lineup is going to do extremely well against the field today. And I'm excited to see kind of how Darkness chooses to pilot it today. We've seen him take more aggressive lines in his control decks than recently than we have maybe a year ago. He used to be in a place where he would always make the complete value choice, right? But now he has a better eye for tempo. So I'm wondering if that's going to come into play here in some of these matchups.
I think that's a really, really great point, Ollie. The challenge of playing control lists is that you can't just sit back and wait forever. You have to pick and choose your moment. And the more comfortable you are with those control lists, the more comfortable you can be deciding, all right, this is my opportunity. Now I push aggressive and go to kind of finish off my opponent. So I definitely think Darkness is a vet of these control lists. And I'm very excited to see that kind of change in mentality and see him come a little bit more aggressive in this event. Let's take a peek at Vinny, no slouch in the Swiss as well, going 6-1, being a little bit more, I guess I want to say a bit more creative in the lineup that Vinny is bringing today. What are your thoughts, Ollie?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. You just have to look at his Brit list. You got the 2-pounder. That's something that we haven't seen a lot of. A lot of different, effectively, a really good way to get to Commonwealth and get it quickly with Observer Cores dropping it down. A lot of different buffs. I think this is an interesting list. I do, however, think that kind of on a matchup level, if this runs into something like the Soviet control deck from Darkness, I think it's going to struggle, right? If it goes into those decks that have a lot of targeted removals, and crucially, if Darkness is able to find that removal, of course, there's always that 1 in 20 games where you just don't draw anything you need, and you're completely dead in the water. Bringing USA Italy, that's kind of his version of the hyper ramp as well, and I think that's awesome. I've been playing a lot of hyper ramp on ladder recently. I think it's a lot of fun, but bringing in the Era Cobra is something that I think is super interesting, given that it takes less damage from ground units, so it becomes a sticky unit that is able to trade effectively. Then, of course, you know, we see the Soviet USA. It looks like a fairly value-heavy deck. That's going to be pretty interesting. More of an old school Soviet value deck. And then finally, Japan super aggro. And I think the super aggro side is probably going to be, you know, his best bet to just blitz out and absolutely obliterate one of Darkness's decks if he just doesn't get the right draws. But it's going to be an interesting matchup nonetheless.
And you mentioned having, let's say, kind of that one token aggro list to try and push through control, but there's also the challenge of your opponent does get one ban, right? This is best of 5. They're bringing 4 decks. If Darkness says, I don't want to risk not drawing my control pieces, not drawing my removal, I don't want to risk having that aggro deck run over me in 3 turns, well, we're just going to take that one, move it aside. I'll focus on these other 3 that I can maybe make better value trades with and control the gameplay a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, I think as long as Darkness goes into the aggro matchup with something that allows him to heal, like the Soviet Italy matchup, then he's going to be doing all right. It's mainly if he ends up, you know, he's packing the Bryansk irregulars, right? And for people that don't know, that's like you pin a unit and you deal 2 damage to units on either side. That's an extremely potent answer to a lot of these aggro lists. So
I'm sure that, again, a lot of that comes down to when you've got that aggro control, it comes down to the draw. Do you have the pieces? Do you not? If the aggro player has the cards that can push through, then you're going to have a problem. And that's how it'll break down. But that is one matchup. That would be one win out of a potential 3 that Vinny would need to move forward. So as we mentioned previously, I think this is going to be tough on both sides regardless.
So here we go. Yeah, Vinny banning out one of Darkness's hand lock decks, banning out the Germany-Britain control one, and then Darkness banning out this USA Hyper Ramp deck. I think these bans make sense, especially getting rid of the Hyper Ramp. It's got a lot of draw in there, and it's got this really powerful late game, so it makes sense to see him get rid of it. And like you said, this Jagro, actually, if Vinny can't find a way to win with this Jagro, and Darkness is very comfortable against Jagro, he may get a lot of free games today with it, because there are a lot of Jagro decks in this tournament. So if he's ready for Jagro, then he may get a good chunk of free games.
Yeah, fully agree. And also banning the German variant here from both draw denial decks also makes sense, because I think the German variant is just a little bit stronger in Jagger removal and early and Leopold and stuff like that. It's just the better discard or draw denial deck, I guess.
Makes I absolutely agree. I think it's the stronger of the 2. I think the German elites also really suit the deck. You got cards like the Comet, you got the Leopold, which you mentioned, but you've also got like the Jag Bomber, and you do get cards like Hipper as well, which are really good. We can see the mulligans here. We see Britain, Germany control coming up from Darkness, and Vinny starting off with the Jagro.
Ooh, and a very good starting hand here for Vinny already with the Signal Regiment in hand. He has a Type 94, 15th Cavalry. Oh my god.
Gets rid of a lot of it though.
Darkness found the Commando, right?
Yeah, Commando.
He found the Honey, he found the U-16. Oh man, it's so sad to see a U-16. Earlier this week, after Jacking won the OCC, I just played a full discard counter deck with Jackson and M4A1, and in 3 hours or 6 hours on over 2 days, I faced one discard deck and there was no U-16 turn 1. And seeing this now here in the Cards Open makes me a little bit sad. But good for Darkness. He's just having the Honey here to cover that 15th. But I'm not sure how he's ever getting rid of that Signal Regiment.
No, I think that Signal is going to be a real difficulty. You might be able to find some removal for it later. And oh, look at that.
Yeah,
that
what
artwork.
is
That's MI5. Yeah, the new alternative artwork. Finds himself a second Honey, And this Lend-Lease is going to be really important if you can survive to. With a honey, if you have a honey on board, you Lend-Lease, you're going to heal for 7. It's a fortification, and it will also help you find removal. But Vinny getting very aggressive, starting to pressure Darkness, and it's going to force him to start actively trading with these honeys. And this is going to get them low enough to die to cards like Desperate Measures.
Yeah, I think Desperate Measures is one of the most hated cards for me at the moment. I think it's just so strong in certain situations, especially against Jaggeru.
The raiding off the top of the deck as well could be super powerful here. Now, I think you actually prioritize taking out a honey over these commandos, because the commandos, anything that commandos are going to kill, the honey are going to kill as well. So you're better off taking out one of these.
That's a good point, yeah.
We see him pressuring face as much as he can, getting as many units down as he can on the board.
Yeah, with that Signal Regiment, he can do it, right? Because any unit that is dying is just dealing 1 damage to opponent's face, and you want to get in any damage possible there. There's
Darkness,
another MI5.
Yeah, finding another MI5. Finds a Panzer III, which could help him find a card like Monty or Shalling to buy some time. But Vinny really putting on a lot of early game pressure, and I imagine we'll see the Desperate Measures come out this turn.
Or maybe Bombing Raid?
Goes for the Bombing Raid, fair enough. And you don't really have anything to do with those spare credits anyway, so it certainly has some sound look to it. There's the Shanning if he wants it.
Yeah, but he already lost 2 honeys.
Yeah.
No way to get rid of the Signal Regiment. That is Darkness really on the back foot here.
But I think Vinny can also afford to just ignore this Sexton. Considering going for the Desperate Measures, doesn't go for the it goes for the trade. Sorry, with the 35T. I mean, you're trading a 2/2 to free up a 2/2, so there's certainly no mistake in that. Wellington is very nice as well, but with this Signal on board, even stuff like Shalling and Carpet Bomb, it doesn't get you out of this situation, because this Signal, every time one of Vinny's units die, it does 1 damage to Darkness's HQ, so he's going to be slowly ticking away.
Yeah, and even if you're in a situation like this, just for the audience that is not too familiar with the game, even if Darkness is finding a Carpet Bombing now, that Signal is still dealing 2 damage, because it is dealing damage first before it dies. And I think that makes it even stronger, right? Like on turn 7, your opponent is usually having a big board and that Signal Regiment, and you first of all have to get rid of that Signal before you can get rid of the board. And that is really problematic and really, really strong from the aggro archetype here. And Darkness with the U16.
We should be able to see Vinny kill his own units this turn. When it comes around to Vinny's turn, I imagine we'll see Vinny trade away his own units, and this way he can Rado and try and find one of these draw engines.
Like the Feigned Retreat, right? And the chances are very high that he's finding one, because he already had Bombing Raid,
right?
he has Desperate Measures, yeah.
Because I don't believe he runs Yamato, which means he is definitely going to find one.
Is he running Enigma? But Enigma would be a very bad choice, right? Because Darkness is also down to 3 cards.
Yes, but if you wait till after the Lend-Lease, then it still works. I think I'd like to see Vinny trade before he plays the Mito, because then he can then play the Errado as well. But I don't think it's too much of an error either way. The advantage was if he traded first, he'd then have 2 units on board, and he could play one of these Errados and draw that turn.
Darkness really needs to find some draw here. When that Mito dies, he's down to 1 health, and then... So he has to find an answer now. Like Monty might buy him some time.
Yeah. I mean, when Vinny trades both of these units down on board, it will do 4 damage total.
5 damage, right?
No.
Why? 2 from... Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah. I'm not sure where the 5th damage came from.
Yeah.
Spoo's best strikes again. I'm not sure where that 5th damage came from.
He's able to Errado.
Down to 3. Ooh,
you don't want to play Feigned Retreat though just yet. You definitely want to play your Signal first and make sure you have the Signal down on the board. I imagine we'll see him play as much of his hand as possible. He may even just go for this pin, just to empty as much of his hand as he can. The only risk he's at is if Darkness has U16 and another form of discard, he could potentially lose both his draw engines. So I actually like him holding onto the pin here, just being extra safe about the double discard.
Darkness using the radar here, bringing him out of dying range here.
Yeah.
Bring himself up to 7 again. So Vinny needs to find additional burn now, because this 3 damage from the units dying is no longer enough. And there comes the 16.
Without a way of killing this signal, cards like Feigned Retreat will just kill Darkness over 1 or 2 turns. It won't be, there'll be no question. If Feigned Retreat is popped and Signal's on board, there'll be no question about Darkness's fate.
So what is getting rid of here? Probably the Enigma.
You get rid of the Enigma. You can play your pin if you want, but I think you're definitely playing Feigned Retreat this turn.
So, and what is Darkness' plan the next turn? Is he going to the front line? You probably don't do this, because then Vinny can trade all of his units that he's drawing from the Feigned Retreat straight into these units.
No, you don't push the front line. You let Vinny push up the front line, and then when Vinny's board is flooded, you Montier, and you try and buy as much time as you possibly can.
I think find the third honey, right? So you can honey land lease.
I think, you play the land lease this turn. Finds the tactical strike. Able to take out the signal regiment, and that could be game-changing. And we've seen the Shiden from Vinny get discarded already. Darkness now able to push up to the front line. Doesn't have to worry about the signal anymore.
By the way, Darkness is not having another honey.
No more honeys. Akita, where does it proc? Hits the guard.
Oh. That tactical strike might be the winning card here for Darkness. Because how is Vinny ever getting through these guards there?
And also, Darkness is able to play this discard next turn and prevent Vinny from comboing off any further unless Vinny can take the front line. So Vinny... I think Vinny's unable to take the front line this turn. Which means...
not enough credits. Send our regiment a little bit too late, but I'm not sure if it would have really helped. There comes the wolf pack, and that Wirbelwind has to do all the work now.
Really tough situation here for Vinny. However, game is still winnable. I think it is far from over.
So Darkness moving to the front line. I assume Vinny's not playing Shiden?
He discarded the Shiden at the start of the game. On the U16 on turn 1.
Yeah, okay. Did not see that one.
So now Vinny needing some burn from his deck. He only has 2 Mitos in the entire deck, and he's played one of them already. So there's one more Mito in the deck. There is also the Akitas, and these are the main sources of burn here. But the second Wolfpack coming out, and I think this is starting to look like game. Darkness, just by the skin of his teeth here, finding this tactical strike and able to control Vinny's game.
You know what? Darkness was down to 2, right? He played radar up.
Yeah.
No, he got down up to 7, so he was down to 3. So that one situation where he traded into the Sexton and not going face, do you think that it would have changed something if you would go face there?
It's a really difficult call because it was so early into the game that 1,000 things could have happened differently between there and here.
There goes.
He needs to find triple Akita, but was just Whirlwind into Whirlwind.
How can he have 3?
The Fog of War.
Why am I missing all the key plays here? What the hell is going on?
It's okay. It's okay. Now, I believe Vinny is able to prevent lethal here by using the pin. To pin out one of these air units in the back line.
And even take one out.
And then fully trade into this front line. You have to you either fully trade into the front line or you pin both of these air units. Clock is ticking. Gonna have to make a decision. Looks like he's going for the pin. He's gonna have to pin both of them.
Faster.
Doesn't get off in time. He doesn't
it,
play the pin quick enough, and that is game 1 to darkness.
Oh, I mean...
Oh no, Vinny the clock! It just caught him.
Vinny the clock?
Real Vinny the
After
clock.
Winnie the Pooh, we have Winnie the clock.
Dude, it just caught him off.
Oh,
That was like half a second longer he needed, and he would have potentially survived. And who knows what could happen next turn? We saw him getting an Akita then. It could have swung his way. This deck can be very explosive, but not quite pinning in time.
Wow, that was very intense.
Is that the first time we've seen a feigned retreat deck lose to the clock?
Might be.
It might be, and that's a difficult position, especially when this is one of the weak points in this matchup for Vinny, and he was doing, I'd say, relatively well with it that game. He had a really nice start, and he was able to pop the feigned retreat. I'm concerned that he may not get a better match than he had that one with the deck, and it's going to be a difficult deck for him to win in, like you say.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the other decks, like Darkness, Japan, Poland, is even having more guards potentially, and that Soviet Italy. I mean, I think this deck is just designed to be good against Jagger.
We see Darkness going for his Japan Poland deck. We see Vinny going for his Soviet ramp.
That can be interesting.
Now, he does have the Zukov on turn 1, but I believe he has multiple infantry in the deck, so we may see him save it.
Yes, especially because he's also having that battalion there in hand. I assume there are even more. I mean, maybe he's only having these two. Let me check.
No, he has the 272nd Guards. He's got the Naval Brigade, and he's got
Airborne.
the 6th Airborne.
Yeah.
So he's going to want to hold on to that for a bit. Darkness having both Tarnos in hand.
But also one Plan West, which is not too bad.
Yeah, and he can get a lot of units out onto the board with the Plan West and the Scouting Party, and then he is able to heal off this as well.
Can just check the whole hand here from Vinny with the Agency Africa.
Steals the Zukov. Oh no, that is not the card you want to steal.
Just play it straight away now.
Yeah. So for those that don't know, Zukov draws the Soviet infantry from your deck and reduces its cost for the turn. But obviously, Darkness having no Soviet infantry in his deck because he does not have a Soviet deck. Oh, I think the KV may be the most valuable of the three, but the first rifles is also very powerful.
Yeah, I think you always go for KV here because Darkness deck is not really having that much direct removal.
And yeah, if a Tano regiment is on board, it can really do a lot of damage very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And he decides to go for it.
Yeah, I think it's the logical choice. Darkness goes for his Plan West, but Vinny, having a lot of ramp, is going to be able to completely skip the mid game. And both players are going to have a lot of board wipes. We've got obviously Japan board wipe, and we've got cards like Uprising. But then Vinny also having. Oh, does he not have the ISU? Sorry, my mistake. Vinny does not have much board wipe. I assumed he was running the ISU.
He's also not having Winter Offensive, right?
No, yeah.
Okay.
I suppose though, if you plan on having lots of bombers and units on board, you don't want to be nuking your own bombers. So there is some real logic to it.
Makes absolutely sense. And he's also having Night Witches in this. Maybe he uses that as a sort of AoE, because the bombers, you have whether the bombers to attack enemy units, or you just have from the people you get from the destruction effect of these bombers. He's also playing redeployment. That is interesting.
A lot of legions from Darkness here. I think he's going to be able to put a lot of pressure on, and he can heal for quite a bit as well, as you've seen. He's already healed up to 27.
Honestly, it might backfire here that Vinny is not having any sort of AoE.
It may do, but if he gets this B17 down early enough, he may just be able to trade away. Hitting the damage lesions, unfortunately.
Darkness finally raiding brigade can get rid of that heal there. But there might be... Ooh. Darkness with a full front line. Move here just to get rid of that B17 as soon as possible. So Vinny, can he just... he cannot really protect... Oh, you can with the T60 protect that bomber. Or just playing partisans, even better. Do this. Oh. Ooh.
And we
That
see
is not
this,
looking too good.
This early B17 from Vinny is putting in a lot of work already.
So Darkness is down 3 or 4 Polish units.
4 legions.
4, right? He played double plan west.
I mean, we may just see him go for a redeployment soon and try and find some AoE. But I feel like you want to get a Tano down before you play redeployment so that you've got some draw afterwards and you've got this guarantee of a Tano. You see Vinny having his heal engine destroyed here by Darkness with the raiding brigade. I just point out as well this lovely little box that Darkness has on his side of the board. This table prop for Japan, I think, is one of the nicest ones. This food ration box.
I always get hungry when I look at this.
I'm
like Chinese food.
I should get a takeaway.
So how do you come back when you're Darkness here? Just wait for your uprising, your board clear?
I think you're trying to hit this Tano redeployment combo where you refill your whole hand and you have a Tano regiment left over. The issue is you see these little recons here from Darkness. He's finding the amphibious, so he's able to take out this KV. There is another KV for Vinny somewhere in his deck, and these recons can really backfire because every time they trade, they draw you a card and ping your HQ.
Yeah.
Vinny.
Yeah. Go on.
I found another B17. Unfortunately for him, Armored Train will not protect his current one. However, he can go for these guards. These guards are very powerful against Japan because this uprising, this to the last man, all of these things where it destroys both players' boards, will actually leave Vinny with this Joseph Stalin tank. So it can be very powerful in this matchup. I wonder if we'll see Darkness just put a fighter down just as protection from this B17. Goes for the Tano, goes for the long-range recon.
Huge amount of healing.
Yes, that is 12 health
Plus
points.
12.
Oh my lord.
I think that was the strongest long-range recon I've seen after the nerf. Plus 12, that's a lot. Back to 23. So he should not really care about that B17 any longer going to his face. And Vinny starts to, or needs to start trading units away with it now. So the situation is not completely getting out of control for him.
I think there's some logic as well to trading this light infantry and dropping the second B17 under this guard. Because you've got 2 of them on the board, you then have a lot of threat again. You can also go for the B17 attack onto this Tano and use the naval grade to kill it. I think destroying Tano regiments very quickly can be very, very important. So yeah, we'll see him take out the Tano. Unfortunately for him, though, Darkness does have a second one. However, if Darkness expends the second Tano, that could be 2 of his win conditions out of the window. It's a very risky move. Manages to get the T60 discard. I think that's an okay card to have discarded. I think T60 or Warborns you'll take, but really you're hoping it hits this War Machine, and if it hits this B17, you could be in a lot of trouble. Darkness now, finding a desperate measures, considering going for the Tano. I imagine he'll follow up with the redeployment.
Yeah.
Shuffles his hand back into his deck, refills it.
And I played Intel this week, and I just realized how strong it is to know your opponent's hand exactly.
Oh, it's
So
so
once you know
powerful.
your full hand, you can play it completely different than you would if you don't see it, and that's a big advantage that Darkness is having here. He knows there's only one B17 left as a threat here, additionally to the one that is already on board.
We do see this uprising as well, and I think we may actually see this uprising come out soon. I think he's going to want to trade into this 270 seconds, where it's going to spawn in this new Joseph Stalin, and then we may see the uprising come out. He may also try to buff his legions to have more than 4 attack, and then you can actually play Banzai and have your legions survive. The only downside is this Tano is guaranteed to die.
Yeah, and it's already his second run.
And
He's
we
not having
see
it.
Vinny setting up the Avenger, right?
Yeah. So I think Vinny just wants to have more draw here. That's why he played the Warbans.
Yeah.
Get
The
one
issue
additional draw
is,
next turn.
as Vinny clears the board, Darkness's AoE becomes more and more powerful because it's gonna affect less of his own things and more of Vinny's things.
Yeah, that's what is so hard about playing against legions, right? You get not really a good benefit from trading the board clear, because then your opponent is just you're improving your opponent's uprising with it, and that is really annoying when playing against legions. And Darkness deciding to play Underground State on what here?
I imagine the armored trainers. He probably doesn't want to heal these guards.
Darkness deciding to keep the uprising.
I wonder if we'll just see him go for the draw into the pin. He does see this Avenger, so he may try and do something about this. I'm just not sure what he has in his arsenal as an option. He can go for the Takasaki. However, Vinny would be able to play around that by attacking with the B17, so it doesn't achieve too much. Doesn't have a way of buffing his desperate measures out.
He's also having a full hand, so cannot play any Intel card here. Otherwise, he would overdraw and find and overdraw maybe one of the key pieces.
Quickly picks himself the Kika. Is he going to go for the Avenger before attacking with the B17? That'd give him a 50-50 chance of hitting the unit he wants. I think he's really better off attacking the Takasaki with the B17 to guarantee his Avenger hits this Tano.
Absolutely.
I mean, taking the 50-50 just isn't what you want to do in these situations. And yet, we see him go for it. Prioritizing guarding both his bombers over the HQ. I think a very sensible decision in this situation. These bombers right now are the key thing keeping Vinny in the game. I think I'd like to see an uprising come out from Darkness real soon.
Yeah, first of all, he needs to find a way to kill that 272nd, right?
He can go for the Kawanishi Desperate Measures, and that will do 4 damage to everything, and it will really disrupt Vinny's board.
You can also just trade the Raiding Brigade into it. Raiding Brigade, Desperate Measures.
That is true. Raiding, Desperate Measures, Uprising. I think I like that line more, actually. Goes for the long-range recon. Can still go for the Desperate Measures, trade into Uprising. And then you do discard an opponent's card as well with this Takasaki. I really like this combo where you uprising the board, you kill your own Takasaki, and you make your opponent discard a card. And right now, B17 and We Can Do It have really high value hits, and the Armored Train you take as well, because it allows you to hit face with your fighters.
Especially because your opponent is out of guards then, and then you have free way with the kicker and with the oh no, this is not a Shidan, but you have free way with the kicker to trade out these bombers.
Darkness deciding to play a little bit slower, pushing up to the front line.
He really wants to keep this AoE for later. Tries to get rid of this situation in a standard way, keeping his good removal back. Because he sees that Winnie has a lot of stuff as a backup there, just like another B-17 armored train.
These units that are going to replace themselves, such as the T60 and these guards, are going to be really, really powerful this matchup. Able to get more longevity out of your cards is super important in these high-value matchups, such as control mirrors. We do see the red banner, but I would be surprised if we saw the double Joseph Stalin come out, because really what's making it so powerful is the fact that you get it from this destruction effect. If you produce 2 Joseph Stalins, they'll just die to AoE. You really want these to be spread out amongst like multiple waves and not have one big wave of powerful units. Red banner gets discarded by the Takasaki.
Now, there comes the desperate measures. So very smart from Darkness to keep his AoE.
Look at this uprising.
Because now he also catches a
10
T60
damage
with
to
it.
all, completely wipes Vinny's board and puts Vinny in a really difficult situation. And look at these hand sizes now as well. Darkness having a far bigger hand. I believe that is Last Rites in Darkness's hand, one of the new artworks.
Yeah, I think so too. That's the credit card most, right?
Yeah. To the Last Man as well, but Darkness has a lot of options now. Can go for the pin. I feel like getting this Tano, this Karas down soon may be pretty valuable, because while he has a lot of options, none of them are too incredible. They're all a little bit slow.
I want to mention, he's having a lot of cards, but not a lot of cards that are doing anything here for the board. So if you're Vinny, are you going to ever be 17 that Karas? Not really, huh?
I mean, you can go for the sickle. You can see what you find. There's certain logic to playing the B17 to kill the Karas just so you have a B17 down as well and preventing Darkness from finding more useful cards. But you know if you play that B17 that it's most likely going to die. And that's a really difficult decision to make, especially when you have Euro Factories left in the deck. And you can use these Euro Factories on the B17 to try and get this untargetable bomber. And an untargetable bomber in this matchup could be the difference between victory and defeat. So I imagine we'll see Vinny wait for the Euro Factories before using the B17.
Yeah, that's a good point, especially because Darkness' only answer against that B17F would be the To the Last Man, or maybe the kicker.
Yeah.
To go into it, but if you can manage to guard it, that kicker is kind of useless against that.
The kicker also, unfortunately for Darkness, doesn't destroy it on one hit. We find the 6th Airborne as well here for Vinny. So these Euro Factories are going to be super, super powerful for him if he's able to find.
Decides to draw first here. I think the big advantage here for Darkness is that Last Rites in his hand. Because the fatigue match, he will always win the end game there when the decks are getting smaller and smaller. He can just play these Last Rites, give himself 8 more cards, and with any other nation, you cannot really compete with that one. So he's not even forced to play the Kamikazes. Just use these Kamikazes to give you additional draw. There goes that one. And that is the big advantage that Darkness is having here. Vinny is having a lot of value. He's only having 3 cards in hand, but all of them have a lot of value. Armored Train, not that big, but the B17 and that 6th Airborne. Really, really strong cards.
I mean, there's a lot of AoE left for Darkness, though, right? He has, I assume, another Uprising. He has a To the Last Man and a Banzai left. There's still a lot of AoE left. I think it's going to be difficult for Vinny to establish more than like 2 to 3 units at once. I think any more than that, you overcommit yourself. And what this means, though, is Vinny's victory is going to be a very slow one if he's able to put it out, right? He's going to be very slowly chipping away at Darkness, which does give Darkness a few more opportunities to find what he needs. Like this, you don't really want to commit more than you already have here on the board.
Yeah, this already looks like a little overcommit, but with this first rifles on board, To the Last Man is not that strong because it gives your opponent 1 additional card back from the destruction effect from the first rifles.
Exactly, yeah.
So that's the strong thing about T60 here in this matchup. It is not just a threat with the 2-4 that can deal constant damage to your opponent's face. Also, when your opponent destroys it, it gives you an even bigger threat with this T34.
I'd like to point out as well, Uprising is not particularly viable for Darkness as a solution to a board like this because of these 2-3 infantries from Vinny. If Uprising does like 15 damage to this, it's going to heal Vinny for like 15.
Yeah, they're really strong in decks like this or against this, because it can give you so much heal potentially without hitting your HQ. So Darkness really
goes for the Banzai.
Not too bad. Good setup for To the Last Man later.
Yeah, I think also identifying the fact that he's probably not going to get a great option for the Banzai later on into the game. I really like Vinny holding onto this armored train. I'd be very tempted myself to play it, to start spamming out like infantry and be a bit more aggressive with them. But identifying that, hey, this is a really powerful guard, which is really difficult for Darkness to trade into with fighters. I'm going to save this for as long as I can so I can use this later in the game. I mean, right now, tempo is not the name of the game, it's just value.
Yeah, Darkness really has to be careful about his removal, because there's so much stuff left in Vinny's deck. Like, he's having at least one T60 left, maybe two.
Goes for the Naval Op and the Tora.
Playing the Kawanishi here. Forcing out the B17 from Vinny, probably.
I think we'll see him hold it there. I think he's really waiting for these Aero factories. No, goes for it now.
You cannot really let a Kawanishi on board, I guess.
I like this, putting them on the left side of the HQ. This way his armored train is protecting his B17. He does give up HQ protection, but I do believe it's worth it because of how important this B17 is. Darkness may go to the last man here. Does still have an Uprising left in the deck.
And also just go kick a face here. There is the To the Last Man. Nice.
Saves his draw. Vinny finds the Night Witches. Could potentially be somewhat powerful in this matchup. These extra pieces of removal you'll get, it could be really, really powerful. I mean, the bombers themselves probably won't last for too long. You know, a Tora can come out. You can have a fighter come out. There's a lot of things which can get rid of them, but it does give you from the people to deal with cards like Shiden and Kika.
I think that's Darkness probably not having that many units left in the deck, right?
Yeah.
Other than the Kicker is already having in hand, and then
there's the other Uprising. Now, I don't think he can play this Uprising without killing these infantry first. Otherwise, the heal could just be game changing. Goes for the Underground State. Possibly putting down a wave of legions. Could go for the other Underground and the Section 2. That's trying to establish some units. Finds a plan west. He's able to find another intel card. It could be very good. Partisans could be huge this game, especially with the Euro factories left in the deck.
There are two left, right?
There are two left in the deck.
God.
That is
and
correct.
you lost the red banner already from the discard.
However, two Partisans and two Euro factories could be absolutely huge. There's 11 cards left in Vinny's deck, 7 left in Darkness. However, Darkness does have a way of extending his deck size with this last rites. But the decks are getting thin. Darkness able to establish quite a nice board for himself. This is where Vinny would want like the Winter Offensive or the ISU, but he's not packing those. And it's starting to get to that really, really calculated part of the game. I believe there is still a confusion left in Vinny's deck, which could be huge with one of these legions. Both players should know pretty much exactly what's in each other's deck and exactly what the chances of top decking each different card is. So it comes down to a really calculated part of the game. Darkness, considering the Amphibious Assault, takes out the infantry. I think that speaks volumes about the potential Uprising incoming.
decides to go to the front line here. The good thing for Darkness here is both do not have the equal amount of health.
However, if Vinny sickles the 5-5, he could potentially find the confusion and set himself up for a really nice trade. Considering just going for the 6th airborne.
Into the 5-5.
Yeah. War Machine, not what he is looking for at this stage of the game.
Yeah, I mean, his top decks will not be that great, right?
Yeah.
There might be...
I think there's
how many? Did he play 1 or 2 confusions so far?
I believe he played 1 confusion.
Okay,
so I think
then there's 1 confusion left, 2 Ural Factories left.
Yeah, there's a Partisans left. I believe there's actually a Parade left in the deck somewhere.
That was a good top deck.
Not actually running the Cuban Cossacks. So I'm not sure what is left in the deck to Parade. But I'm sure there's something left.
He's 60 maybe. I think
Tractor Factories left in the deck as well. Oh, just found it there, sorry.
Yeah, he just found it this turn.
Wait, he's used both P17s.
T17? No, T60s.
Oh, T60, sorry. Yeah. He should have a T60 left, yeah. And a a Parade on a T60 could be huge, because there's also 2 T34s. So it gives you a lot of longevity in a game where longevity is super important.
Yeah, that might be the big advantage here. Darkness not with too many pressure left here. I think he just has to see now how he controls the board, bringing Vinny down to 0 cards left in his deck. And
now,
then just...
this scouting party could backfire.
Yeah, I think he's not going to play it here.
I mean, they're drawing extra cards, especially when Vinny can proc it with things like the Signal. Vinny can actually make Darkness draw extra cards and hit Fatigue a whole lot sooner.
For Darkness, probably?
Just goes for the pass. Vinny finding another T60. I'm very concerned that this Parade is going to have no units left to Parade.
Oh, man. Might be.
And I think
Factories, 1 confusion.
I think Vinny really needs to save this Tractor Factories for after this Uprising comes out. But Darkness starting to look like he's in a little bit of trouble, and I don't think he's going to be able to fight it down Vinny too quickly, especially if Vinny holds back this guard.
Yeah, this T60 was so important. I'm not sure if I would have loved to see Darkness playing the kicker last turn, go face there for 6 face damage. And it also gives you 5 health fighter there.
I mean, it's worth noting that Vinny doesn't have a huge chunk of HP. I know he's on 22, which is more than default, but at this stage in the game, that's not a huge chunk of health. And especially when you're playing a deck like Soviet Control and it's this late in the game, you know, a couple hits with the Shidin and a couple hits with the Kika, and you are getting really low on health.
Yeah. And then you're almost at a point where you can just play these kamikazes to kill your opponents faster. Because from the kicker you get 4, from the last rights you get 8, so it's 12 additional damage. And if you would have set him to 16 here, and this turn you could go Shidin on the T60, go face there, set him to 12, and that's 12 potential damage. But sure, I'm pretty sure Darkness knows what he's doing here. Getting rid of the airborne there with the kicker, giving himself 4 kamikazes now. So they both should be equal in deck size now. But Darkness with the way worse draw now with these kamikazes, potentially. Just another kicker, holy moly. Oh, he got that other one from the Soul of Old Japan. Or did I miss something again? So... oh man.
The Shidin comes out, but it's gonna get stolen. Darkness probably going to use his Shidin right here. I think Vinny, he can steal it, he can attack phase with it, and he can confusion it. It's sort of the perfect storm here for Vinny. And there's some really good 6-drops you can get out of this. I believe the Osaka is probably... Oh no, is that 5-drop? The Osaka?
I think so, that 4-7.
Finds the Ginga!
Ooh, a bomber.
Yeah.
But Darkness with the kicker in hand.
However, if you play the kicker and don't blitz face, you could be, putting yourself into a difficult scenario. So actually, there's only 2 Japanese 6-drops. There's the Ginga and the Tony.
Oh, Tony would have also been huge.
I think the Tony would have been the more useful of the 2.
Absolutely agree. Kicker. I think he's getting rid of the bomber. But Vinny with a very good potential tractor factories here now. Can kill the kicker and go face. It would be insanely good. And also forces Darkness to maybe play his Uprising again. I would love to see the tractor factories here.
I don't know if you can track. I think you just T34. The tractor factories really sets you up to get Uprising. Deck's getting really, really low. Darkness puts 4 extra cards in his. Vinny tickling Darkness's face for 1. Darkness can be drawing a lot of kamikazes now.
Just 17 more turns.
And the fact that he's playing these makes me think he's looking for a very specific card. Finds a bombing raid. It's a very powerful card.
How many kamikazes can you have? It's 8, right?
Wait, did he play Last Rites already?
No, he had played 2 kickers.
Oh, he played 2 kickers. Yes, sorry. I was a little bit like, wait a minute.
And there he goes. He's just playing this now, gives him 8 back. He's having the bombing rate. Exactly 12 credits for 12 damage next turn. 11 damage.
So Vinny needs to find a solution. He can go for the South Sickle, but not going for it.
So this means Darkness is taking the 2-0 lead here.
A very calculated lethal here from Darkness.
You know what? I really would have loved to see Winnie do the tractor factories last turn. Because that would have been 5.
I think you were right, yeah. Spoos was right.
When did this ever happen? What the hell? Yeah, that sets up a lot of pressure for Darkness, and he could not do that play that he's doing now. And very, very well played here. Darkness knew exactly what he had left on his side and on Winnie's end. And just with the almost perfect lethal here.
And these kamikazes, yeah.
Okay, made it a perfect,
really
but there was 1 kamikaze left. GG.
And Darkness 2-0. Very powerful start for him. Does still have to win on this Soviet Italy deck. However, it's a very powerful deck. I don't think he'll have too much trouble winning with it. I think that was a beautiful display of value and calculation from Darkness there, knowing exactly how to find lethal when most of us missed it. Not all of us, but most of us.
Yeah, also when to use your tools like the kicker, right, and the shitten, holding them back for potential threats. And
I'd like to point out as well, Darkness ended the game with an Uprising in hand. He could have still Uprising that board and bought himself a whole bunch of time.
Yeah. So that just shows how much removal is in that deck, with all these Banzais to the last man, double Uprising, then all this AoE with Tora, and with potentially combined with the Kawanishi. Wow, that is just a lot of board wipe potential there. So, and Darkness has to win with his last remaining deck here with the Soviet Italy control deck, and Winnie is bringing... What is Winnie bringing? The 2-pounder deck. Just for me.
Yeah, I mean...
So I can see it again.
Your back's against the wall, you've brought this deck to have a good time. You may as well bring it, right?
I mean, you have to win it with it at some point, so why not bring it now just to make the caster happy?
I know Darkness is 2-0, and Darkness has been playing beautifully, but I think these games have actually been fairly close. I think this series has been a lot closer than the stats would make it look.
Absolutely. I mean, just remember match number 1 when Darkness was down to 3 and could come back from that one. And also that one was not too obvious win here for Darkness. 1 or 2 other decisions there from Vinny and the game could have gone different maybe.
Yeah, or if he'd gotten the Tony instead of the Gingo, it could have been a very different game as well.
Yeah, because he was down to 5 health at the end, right?
Yeah,
Darkness?
yeah.
And
It
that
could have been
potential
very
5
different.
more damage and the game could have gone differently. Oh, and this is the perfect thing where the 2-pounder shines, like 0 attack.
However, it is on burrow time.
Oh, what? Decides to go face here. Okay, Darkness
Yeah.
cannot attack with both of them.
It
So it
makes
does not-
perfect sense.
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense to take one out because Darkness can only attack with 1 because he's only having 3 credits.
I imagine we'll see Darkness take out the Pounder over the Honey. Yeah, there'd be very little logical reason to go for the Honey here. So I think that's just a sensible move. We do have Commonwealth and Rule Britannia in this deck from Vinny. There's some big late game powerhouses. And he does have a single War Bonds as well, which he's managed to find. There's only 1 copy of War Bonds in the deck.
Yeah, especially when you know that your opponent is having the second para in his deck, you really want to get rid of artillery, because that artillery pincered with a unit that can kill anything with just dealing damage to it is really, really strong.
And we see the engineers in Darkness's hand as well. This could be super powerful this game for pushing Darkness out of Commonwealth range. If you're not able to find these engineers, you do set yourself up to potentially be Commonwealth. And we see Vinny ramping it up. I'm interested if he'll go for the Bletchley or if he'll stop it off at the sonar and just try and brick as much of Darkness's hand as he possibly can.
Yeah, it's always a tough choice, right? I'm never sure what to do. Bletchley is not really that great in these days, and Darkness deck is having a lot of cards that cost more than 5, and you might just waste 4 turns here or 5 turns just going to Bletchley and send cards back that don't affect the game at that point that much.
I like seeing the R3 come out here. I think it's a very powerful drop. Slam it down, set back a lot of Darkness's tempo, and we'll see what he goes for. Or we won't.
He was teasing us.
I was like, I know you're thinking about this.
Blackwatch is also
Ooh.
very good in this matchup.
Ooh.
Hey, Vinny, don't do this to us.
He's teasing us.
Stop it.
We may just see Vinny try and deploy as many units as we can because he does have this Rule Britannia. He can go for the C4 for the Blackwatch, and then next turn he can go for like the Para as well. Or he may go for the Para even this turn. He may push up. No. I think he's saving the Para for when he gets insta value out of it. But he can definitely set up a very powerful Rule Britannia.
Yeah, that Warburns really helped him a lot to get into this Rule Britannia range faster.
Lion for a day coming out, taking out the Churchill.
And I think Vinny is still thinking what to do with this 9 credit research there.
I think he's going to go Bletchley. I think he was just waiting until he can Bletchley the next turn after. Because if you go for Bletchley on turn 10, then you have it turn 11, you can't play it, it gives Darkness more options. Goes for the Bletchley.
There he goes.
So
I'm
what's
Darkness
Darkness going to have left? He's going to have 2 cards remaining in hand and the KV remaining on board.
Yeah, and no draw in the next 6 turns then. That is huge.
Yeah.
So if Vinny can manage to deal with his board there at this point, kill the KV, kill the 272nd, I think that Winter Offensive is not doing that much. Darkness might be in trouble here. Oh, smart. He knows that the Bletchley is coming, so better get additional units on board.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely makes sense. He could have also put the Man Nostrum on the KV to ensure that he has a Man Nostrum unit before the Bletchley comes out. Here comes the Bletchley, and we'll most likely see the Rule Britannia follow up to try and pressure Darkness as much as he possibly can before Darkness is able to reestablish himself.
Makes perfect sense, absolutely. And also the Observer Core there makes it possible that Vinny can play Blackwatch.
Yeah, and this Blackwatch will make Darkness's Winter Offensive 10k, which will be just a little bit of, extra punishment.
Ooh, but down to 12 health already.
Yeah, but if you put this Blackwatch down, you do get a very big guard. I believe it will be a 7/7 guard.
8/8, right?
8/8?
With the
Oh yeah, I'm
Britannia?
thinking of super old Blackwatch. You remember when it was a 1/5? Ages ago.
So what else can Vinny do here? Carpet is not doing that much.
And he
You
can
have
go
to Rule
for-
Britannia here, right?
You can go for the Rule Britannia, you can go for the Alliance with the power as well, though. So you can put down the power and you can trade aggressively using the Alliance as well. But I think I prefer going for the Blackwatch and going for the Rule Britannia. I think it's a much safer play, especially when you know what's coming from Dark. I mean, you don't know what exactly is coming from Darkness, but you know there's not going to be too much coming. There comes the Rule Britannia, gets the 8/8 Fury.
Ooh, that is scary.
Some real big honeys as well. Able to go for the Alliance next turn if he wants. And this board from Vinny is looking terrifying. And I dare say we may be looking at a Vinny game here.
Yeah, Vinny can manage to find the Monty or Shelling. That Blackwatch just might give the Darkness big trouble there.
I think it's going to give him big trouble either way. An 8/8 Fury is just a very scary unit.
Yeah, but Darkness is having ways to kill the Blackwatch. Oh, decides to go for it instantly. Oh no.
Vinny has 2 Alliances. I imagine we'll see him play one of the Alliances, trade a honey into this KV, push up into the front line. I believe Darkness was trying to set up a winter offensive here. Considering trading with the guard instead.
Oh, there comes the Piracy. Oh,
the
man.
Paro and the honey taking out the Joseph Stalin. The little honey that could. And we see the value in this power instantly. Where it comes out and your 2k tank is now trading into a 10k tank.
And now Darkness is having the problem. I don't know, he can still kill it. Can trade it to the honey.
Kill it, but
T34.
yeah.
But look what is waiting in the backline there. Another 1488.
And you also have this this big honey as well. And if you buff this with Alliance, then it's even scarier. Because it can trade and survive. 2-pounder coming out for Vinny as well. I imagine we'll see him put down the 2-pounder, go for the Alliance, and Darkness really limited in his options because of this Bletchley. We know he's got 2 52Ks on top of his deck. There's a Man Nostrum on top of his deck as well. Man Nostrum possibly being the most useful one he could find. Finds the 52K instead, though. We'll probably save the T34. Wait until you get the Man Nostrum and you can save. But Darkness saying GG already. Knows what's in the front line. A 5-attack Fury. The power putting so much work this game. And Vinny with the 2-pounder deck crawling back and taking the game. Making it 2-1. And potentially, if he gets a good start with the Jaguar deck, he could take the series. I think Vinny's Soviet may be better than Darkness Soviet in the mirror, just because of the ramp aspect.
Yeah, I agree.
So it could be looking at it like a somewhat close series for Vinny here. I think a lot of it will come down to what happens with this Jaguar matchup. And that is very much a Darkness favored matchup. But if you can get a feigned retreat off early enough, you can potentially just burn Darkness out, even when he's on a lot of health.
So what do you think is Vinny bringing here next? The Soviet one or the
I think you bring the Soviet one.
Yeah.
If you bring the Soviet one and you can win a game, you can put Darkness against the wall.
So
You
we
see the
did
Soviet?
go for the Soviet one.
Both players will know the matchup. It's value against value. Darkness having stronger direct removal and more healing. Vinny having bombers and ramp. These are the two advantages of the side decks. We see the mulligans here. See
Both
Darkness.
with a very similar starting hand.
Yeah, but Spoons, you see what's in Darkness's hand? Though?
Yeah, the Monastery.
Yeah. Now this destroys all of Vinny's units and spawns in one over one lower cost if they exist. Otherwise, it just leaves the unit on the board. But there could be some very interesting combos with this.
Yeah, I had some fun on Friday, I guess, with it. I played against the tokens deck, and holy moly.
You turned it all into 5/5/4?
Yeah, and I had Winter Warfare, and he just built a nice little board with 7 tokens, and I played Monastery into Winter Warfare and got an instant surrender. So against several archetypes, this can be just so broken, that card. But look at this board, for example, from Darkness here, or from Vinny. This is not a board where you want to play the Monastery on.
I mean, you can turn these engineers into 5/5/4 infantry regiments.
Sure.
Which could
but you also give your opponent the T-34 and give him another 3-drop there and another 4-drop. So
I want to see it come out. I want to see it come out. I want to see it, Speeds. I'm excited. I've not seen it yet. Come on.
We might see it at some point. I'm pretty sure.
You gotta do it now.
Nah, not now. You don't do it on that board. Why would you?
Now. Get rid of the armor train. But yeah, destruction effects do still trigger from this, which means it can be difficult against Jackro because you can trigger the destruction effects of their Mito and their Akita and then give them a replacement card. And it can also be difficult against Soviets with their destruction effects. So it can be a little bit of a two-edged sword.
Yeah, it's also sad that Japan is not having a 0 credit card. You cannot use it to get rid of things like Signal Regiment, for example. That's also a little bit...
Don't give them ideas, please.
I mean, I would love to see Monastery being, good. As I said, or at least more consistent. Like in some matchups, like I think Brit Air is also very good because you can transform all these 3 health early fighters into 1/1s. It's also very good. But in other matchups like this, with a lot of destruction effects, especially when a 272nd is on board, you never play Monastery there.
I think he may have to, though. I think he may not have too much choice at some point. I mean, I just want to see it played. I've not seen it at all yet. So
what I really love is the explosion. Like all units are exploding at the same time. It's just almost making your ear bleed because it's so loud. It's just really, really nice. But yeah, I think Darkness is not at the point yet where he really needs to play a Monastery here. The board is not that frightening that Armor Train cannot attack, and that 2/2 T60 there is not really doing a lot of damage. So Darkness still has other ways to deal with this. Deciding to go with the Mon Rostrum here.
I think out of all the matchups, this is one of the matchups where it's not particularly useful.
Ooh, so Darkness was setting up here a Winter Offensive, but Winnie just found that we can do it.
You're right.
Almost all of his units out of...
But doesn't need to do it this turn. Because
he can still wait.
He knows he's got time. And these light infantry actually being rather useful here.
Holy moly. But what Darkness can do after Winnie played the We Can Do It, he can play the Monastery. The board will not change drastically, but the boss will really be lost there, and then he can play the Winter Offensive and clear the board.
However, Vinny will get 2 T-34s when the Monastery is played.
I mean, he gets them nonetheless, right? Even if you play Winter Offensive, he gets them, so... But yeah, I see. He also gets 2 3-drop theirs.
Yeah.
So... I see that.
Goes for the We Can Do It. Pressures face for as much as he can.
Just imagine he getting 2 of these 1/8 infantry units out of this. they don't die to the Winter Offensive.
Here it is.
There it is.
Boom. So, what do we have on board?
Look.
Take a look. And then here come the T-34s.
Wait, where's the explosion? There it is.
AA gun. Oh.
They all died to
Okay.
Winter Offensive.
That's
Okay, but
an interesting board. I mean, I
Still.
really like these engineers being turned into infantry. It's sort of like, yeah, you are an engineer. Now take this gun and get out of there. You
but
got work to do.
Winnie did get the heal, right? He's at 43
he's
health
at
now.
43 health.
Holy
The
moly.
KV as well, or the Yosef Stalin, both really good options. And Vinny able to continue to pressure face.
I think I prefer KV1 here, because it's less removal for Darkness there to get rid of it, because he cannot play Lion for a day on it.
You know, I'm so glad that AA gun doesn't have smoke screen in the front line. I feel like that would be the sort of thing which would slip by, and then you'd have a smoke screen front line.
Ooh, Darkness down to 5 already.
Oh, he can't go for the winter offensive, or he sets himself up to be dead. Goes for it anyway, essentially saying GG. And nukes his own HQ! Darkness takes himself out, saying GG.
Wow.
And Monster really not paying off for him this game.
No, not really.
And here we go. Vinny crawling back in, and now it's all about this matchup. And we know this is Soviet favored. Jagro against the Soviet Italy. It's a really difficult matchup, especially when you don't have cards like the Kagoshima to counter the healing.
And it depends a lot on the starting hands, right?
No delay at all. I've got places to be, getting straight into it.
Ooh, Darkness finding 845th, very important.
However, this KI in Vinny's hand, it could be game-changing.
But Darkness found 3 guards there, or 2 guards. So
And a
has
heal
a plate
source.
turn
And
2,
some
turn
removal.
3, and turn 4.
Darkness's hand looks absolutely incredible. He's got healing, he's got guards, and he's got removal. And he has dots for each turn of the game. Finds even more healing.
Both
However,
players with a very strong starting hand here.
yeah, Vinny also has a very nice hand for himself. And this KI-83 could do huge amounts of work. Going for the Whirlwind over the Akita, which I think makes sense. The Akita is vulnerable to cards like Bloody Sickle. Darkness gets the Bologna down. We may see the type come out and Vinny use the pin as removal to take out this unit.
Yeah, pretty sure we do. But then there's just a T60 waiting. Ui, ui, ui. Vinny in an unfortunate position here, not finding his signal regiment early.
However, he can go for the K83 next turn, so Darkness can put down the T60, but K83 is a really, really nice response to it.
Absolutely, especially because we see that
There's the
Darkness having
feint.
no answer.
Which means a Rado, 50% chance to find Enigma, 50% chance to find a bombing raid. First rifles for Darkness in hand, though. He's able to put down the first rifles and the engineers this turn, put himself in a really strong position. Saving the engineers for now, possibly concerned about the raid brigade. Finds himself the KV, which can be game-changing against this feigned retreat. Vinny now.
So it's basically
Difficult
3
decision.
guards now. Vinny really needs to find Sendai Regiment to get rid of the first rifles. Otherwise, I don't see how he deals that much damage.
He may go for the desperate measures this turn, and then trade this Whirlwind into the T60 or the T70 or T60.
T60.
Yeah. So many T Soviet cards, you know. Vinny goes for the trade with the KI-83, which will set it up to be killed by Darknesses from the people. Or Red Dawn. Vinny trying to give himself as big of a desperate measures as possible. I think we'll almost definitely see this KI-83 get removed this turn. The question for Darkness is just how does he want to do it? Does he want to use from the people? Does he want to use the naval? You know, he has a few different options.
Just imagine you're up against Jagro and it's turn 6 and you still have 20 health. That's not what you want to see when you are a Jagro player.
But this deck can be explosive.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. But 20 health? And knowing that your opponent is stuff like Mar Nostrum in his deck? Oh, I don't know. That
Look, he's not on 20 anymore. He's now on more than 20. Oh, never mind. Oh,
19.
I got to 19.
Akita.
He was momentarily on 21.
Until Akita strikes. Oh, and he finds the Briannes. Man, he's just finding all of his guards early on. Can find a bombing raid. Or Enigma. Oh, I found the Enigma. That was probably not what he was looking for. But it's also good to get the orders out of the deck, right? So once you play a Feign Retreat, you only have one order left in the deck. So you keep this continued draw machine on and on. Got rid of the battalion. Back to 20 health now. It's just looking like the start of the game now. Wow, honestly, I don't see how there's ever 20 damage, especially when the KV is out now. So Feign Retreat could really backfire for Vinny now. Oh god.
And it's sort of the perfect answer to Feign Retreat. When your opponent is forced to draw orders, forced to draw cards, sorry, and you're pinging them for each ping.
Yeah. Can also not play Enigma here. All the advantages laying in Darkness' hand here.
Yeah, it's looking really rough for Vinny.
Another guard.
Two more guards.
And another guard.
And while these don't really have any offensive capabilities, they're just protecting Darkness's HQ. And it's putting Vinny in an even more difficult position where he's going to have to kill you at some point, probably hoping to use his bombing raid to finish them off so that he doesn't lose any units. You know, this is the sort of situation where I would want a blitzkrieg.
Yeah, and as I said, it's really, really crucial here for Vinny that he did not find a signal regiment. That would have been so much more damage, at least 6, 7, 8 damage more than he did at this point. And I think he would have a chance then, but this is looking just too bad.
There's the Monastery, haunting Darkness's hand.
Good for Vinny. The only good thing here is that Darkness did not manage to find a Mar Nostrum now. But once Darkness finds the Mar Nostrum, I don't know.
I think even now it's looking really, really rough. You can't play your Feign Retreat. The deck, the card the deck is built around. The deck is built around Feign Retreat, and you can't play Feign Retreat. So you put in Enigma as a backup, and you can't play Enigma. I think it's looking like a Darkness 3-2, you know. But Vinny putting up a really, really good fight. And if he'd have been able to take his Jagger game earlier, we may have been looking at a Vinny 3-2.
Yeah, this game could have gone completely different. Like, if you look at Darkness' hand, if this would have been a starting hand, like Red Banner, Monastery, Partisans, Naval Brigade, Ladeshima, the game could have been completely different. But he just found the perfect starting hand there with 845th into guard, into guard, into guard, into guard. And Vinny not having any Signal Regiment or any good answers against this, no Sendai Regiment. It is just a 3-2 here for Darkness. Congrats. And actually, only the 2-pounder deck. Oh no, there was 2 decks. There was I'm stupid. But the 2-pounder deck and the Soviet US deck, good enough to win against Darkness, but not that one. Jagger just not good enough.
Congratulations to Darkness as well. I mean, he had a great starting hand in Game 3, but I think he also played all of his games really, really well. Even the games where Vinny took the upper hand, I think he played really, really well. So I do think he deserves the win.
I was sitting there watching these first 2 matchups going, man, it would be a shame for Vinny to lose that 3-0 because the games were so tight. They were so close. And sure enough, Vinny comes back, you know, and really does make a series out of it. So I think it was played very well on both sides. I think some of the matchups were not quite favoring Vinny in the long term, and that's what came back to bite him a little bit. But I think Darkness executed perfectly in that first series.
Yeah, I mean, I think credit to Vinny. I think this probably shouldn't have gone to 5 matches, right? I think Vinny played extremely well. He was able to really utilize his deck strengths, and I was super happy to see the 2-pounder deck do so well. I mean, I didn't get a chance to say that when we were coming into the match, but I thought like I would probably end up banning the 2-pounder deck, given the lineups as they looked like kind of leading up into the matchup. Just I would say all in all, exceptional play from both players. Darkness really showing that he is in his comfort zone when he's playing control, and we saw that with the whole lethal calculation in that Japan game. You know, I think he popped like 16 kamikazes or something in a bombing raid to get the lethal. You know, it was crazy, and to be able to calculate that perfectly, knowing kind of exactly what damage he could take in return. He was not far off from, you know, just dying himself. So yeah, exceptionally well played, and just shows the caliber of players that we have at this point in the tournament.
Absolutely. And I think, like you mentioned, you know, Darkness relying on those control lists that he's comfortable with because, you know, he's done that math before. He understands what's in it. He understands what his outs are and is able to play them accordingly. So I think that, you know, watching Darkness execute in that series was great. Vinny played exceptionally well, minus that unfortunate little timer issue in the first game where he's now known as Vinny the Clock, apparently. So we'll see if that one sticks, but that was another huge, just the tiniest misplay that would have continued to give him life, and who knows how that plays out. But I think both sides played exceptionally well. Darkness may be favored, but we're gonna see Darkness in the finals. We're not done with Vinny. Vinny going into the third place, the bronze match.